Okay, and we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I see some of y'all in the comments already dropping hellos. Hello, Lars. Good to see you. I see you were a little bit early, but let us know where you are calling in from. We'd love to see everybody from around the world say hi. So let us know. And if you don't have your chats turned on, feel free to turn them on so you can ask questions as we go along. But welcome, everyone. Okay, this is the state of Node today. So excited to have this and have an amazing set of panelists. I wanted to thank my company, The Stot, and my team for helping set this up. Without them, would not be able to do so many amazing events. We actually just launched workshops. No Node workshops yet, but I do believe they're coming soon. So if you're interested in improving your skills and going to 8-hour workshops, we do have a bunch that are coming up. So in the web community right now, there's a lot of just really exciting things happening, right? I mean, thank goodness for innovation. So Cypress training is happening tomorrow. We have a quick training as well. If you're excited about SvelteKit, there's a SvelteKit training and Svelte Vue 3 as well. And then modern React, since React has been changing so much in the past few years. So check out workshops at this dot, and they're only $99 right now. So sign up while you can. Thank you everyone for starting to say hi. Really exciting to see y'all. We have some upcoming events too. So if you are located in the Raleigh area and you just want to come hang out, check out Beer.js in Raleigh. If you want to do some quick office hours, there's some office hours that are happening. We're also doing State of Svelte in April. And then every month we do a monthly mentoring for women in tech, where it's a quiet, well, it's not that quiet. It's a closed space anyways. And there's probably somewhere between like 10 to 15 women that come of all levels just to hang out and, have a safe space to get to know each other. My name's Tracy. You can follow me on Twitter at LadyLeet. I'm the CEO of a company called This.Labs. And then James.
Hello, and I am James Snell, Node contributor, technical steering committee member. I'm also at Cloudflare working on Workers Runtime. So that's me. How you doing?
Thank you, James. I'm so excited to host with you today. And we have some amazing panelists today as well. Beth, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name's Beth Briggs. I'm at Red Hat, and I spend a lot of my time contributing to the Node project in various spaces, mostly release in the past, but also looking at some security stuff now. That's me.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. Matteo? You are muted, I believe.
Yeah. Hi, folks. Matteo Collina here, dialing in from Italy. I am the co-founder and CTO of a new startup called Platformatic. Check us out. And I'm part of the Node.js technical steering committee as well. I am an one of the OpenJS board members from the community. I am also, I've created a web framework called Fastify for Node. I don't know, I've been talking too much, so yeah.
Good to have you, Matteo.
Thank you. It's always great to be here.
Yeah, and it's really exciting to see the stuff that's happening with Platformatic as well. So really exciting. Definitely check it out. And Michael.
Yeah, I'm Michael Dawson from Canada. I'm also on the technical steering committee, as well as being the Node.js lead for Red Hat and IBM. So basically doing all things Node, from community contributions to helping our customers deploy and resolve problems with their Node applications.
Yeah. Awesome. And we have a great set of questions and things like that today. So I'll let James take the lead on that. But I just have to say, it's like, is it me or is there a lot of stuff going on?
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff going on, all kinds of different different bits here and there, new features, new things that we're gonna talk about, capabilities that people have been talking about for a long time that they'd like to see in Node finally really starting to emerge. So it's got some fun stuff to talk about. So yeah. Thank you all. So, yeah, I mean, let's kick it off. Let's get just kind of get a general sense of what's happening in Node, right? How are things going?
I think things are going really well. We see you're asking like lots of things going on. There's always been lots going on in the Node project, but I think, as James was saying, now is a time where things seem to be like progressing or landing, or moving forward to the point where you can experiment with them. So I think lots of great progress on that. I don't see any change in terms of the velocity for Node. There's still lots of people using it. I from the download numbers we have on the website, there was like over 1 billion downloads in the last year, and that keeps on growing. That doesn't even count our Docker images. There's another 600 million of those. So I think still lots and lots of Node usage, lots of activity in the project, and really no signs of slowing down from what I can see.
Right on. Beth, how are things going with the releases, and kind of any significant activity going on there?
Yeah, a lot of work happens within the release group just to keep the releases kind of churning out regularly. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 supported release lines at the moment, which means a lot of work, especially when security releases need to be patched on all versions, and we have to get people on board to get everything out, which can be a bit of a nightmare. We tend to stick to our typical release plan, and we've done that for quite a while now. And I guess the exciting news is that we will have a new major release coming out in April, Node 20. So we're reaching the 20s of nodes, which is going to be great. And it tends to be a bit more exciting with the even-numbered releases because they're the long-term supported ones and tend to get into like the big companies and the enterprise usage hands for the long-term support. So yeah, we're going on.
Yeah, we also have a milestone with Node 16. Is that coming up to its end of life soon, or?
Yeah, both Node 14, I believe, goes end of life at the end of April, so not long left on that one. And Node 16's kind of a special case. We actually had to bring the support lifetime for that earlier to around September time, and that's because of OpenSSL. They're ending support around that time, so we have to bring ours forward in line with that.
So anybody using Node 14 need to make sure you're up on at least 18 going forward. Mm-hmm. What's been happening with the foundation and things there?
So foundation this year has been somewhat different from the last few years, in the sense that there is a reduced in scope OpenJS World. Like there's no OpenJS big conference event anymore, but instead we are doing 2 micro conferences. Related, one for one in North America in Vancouver in May co-located at Open Source Summit, and one in September in Bilbao, which seems a phenomenal location, to be honest. Seems pretty nice. Okay, a little bit of sun. So it's anyway. 2 smaller events at both those conferences. We'll see how this year will go, okay, and then reassess possibly for next year. Together with those 2 things, we'll also keep doing our collaborator summits. So there is space for the community to meet at those events. It's a little bit of a long trip for me to Vancouver, but I'm totally going to be there. So I hope to see all of you there. That's we are doing a lot of other things at the foundation. There is some discussions on streamlining the way projects can get funds whenever they need to for whatever reasons. Okay, it's kind of important for a lot of things. Especially because like the volunteer model, the collaborator model of OpenJS projects are not 100%. Does not cover 100% of the things that needs to be done. And one of the key examples that we have seen in the last year or so is the funding that we have received as a Node.js as the OpenJS project via the foundation for the security work. So we have been the that's OSSF, open source, open secure. So I completely forgot the name.
The Open Source Security Foundation.
Open Source Security Foundation. Sorry
Yeah.
about this. Open Source Security Foundation. Too many S's. Open Source Security Foundation is providing some good funding to cover for some development of for some of the security work. Which then after that the release team needs to ship it, and it's a lot of work to ship security release. It used to be a 42 steps process. Probably now it's 44. I don't know if I'm the next one stewarding this or not. I don't want to know. Okay, this is one of the a more nightmarish scenario. Like you basically, so the way the security flow works is we have a security steward, which is essentially like a director of an orchestra and coordinating all the people for shipping releases across 3 or 4 lines with multiple bug fixes that have only not tested on CI. Everything can go wrong, and the process is like literally 42, 44 steps manual. Like it's one of the it's a week of life that you donate to the community when you take that role. It's a week. Okay, and you can take it and allocate fully to that task. And if you try to do anything else, you'll make a mess. And the last few times I did, I actually had to fix things for like a couple of weeks after because I made mistakes somewhere in the steps. So yeah, this is that's more or less what's. I did a long recap of everything. So
I hate to tell you, Matteo, but you are next on the list. I just looked up.
I know. I am the next on the list, and I'm not happy about it. But I'm.
Oh my God! With your busy schedule, what are you gonna do?
He ain't that busy. Just throw a few more things on there.
Oh, I hope it's going to happen. Like I always took the slot in the summer, which it's usually a good time because there's no events, no conference, no nothing, very little activity. So I'm actually, I can actually dedicate myself to this task.
Well, one thing. I mean, just I don't think that the folks that are contributing both to the release process, like all the work that Beth, you've done, and all the work with the security stuff, I don't think that those folks get nearly enough credit in the project. So it's like anytime we can, just say, thank you, great job, really, really appreciate all that effort. So thank you for the work that you all are doing in that space.
I think the other thing that's worth mentioning is the support from the OSSF it's really helped in terms of critical mass. Like the security working group was sort of reinvigorated because we have somebody whose time is focused on that particular area. And so not only do we get the benefit of their time and especially when we have like things like security vulnerabilities that have a deadline, volunteers are not a great fit with that. So it really helps with that, but it also helps with, just getting that critical mass where they can help like other people who do have some time, but it's a little bit more ad hoc, contribute to things like automating the updates of our dependencies, which makes it easier to take in, and fix vulnerabilities in the dependencies, do things on supply chain security. So I think that's the other thing too, is that kind of support really does help the project in more than just what that one person can achieve.
All right. Yeah, it's definitely a good point. So let's talk about some of the other things that are happening. Any working groups, new teams, a new activity that's happening in the project.
I think one of the interesting ones is currently we're spinning up a UV WASI team. So UV WASI is the WASI, which is the WebAssembly System Interface. So it's an implementation. It's used actually not only in Node, it's used in some other projects like Grain as well. But it is a key component of Node's WASM support. And so, Colin did a lot of great work building that and maintaining it, but it came to the point where, we needed more people involved. And so we are spinning up a UV WASI team. If you have any interest, There, we've set up the sort of machinery, so issues are open in the UVWASI repo. You can go and see the agenda for the next meeting. We've got some concrete work items, and it's actually like a really great way if you're interested to learn more about WASI in general. We've got some people coming even from like the WASM time runtime, and people not necessarily specifically working in Node, but working in the WASM ecosystem, and it's a great way to learn more about that as well. So I think that's one in particular is quite interesting.
Very nice. Okay. And what about things like Node API and security? Some of these work groups that have been there for a while, how are things going with those?
The Node API one, I think, is a great one because it's long-term. It's been going long-term, and it's been a way we built some really long-time contributors, which is something, I proposed a talk for the Collaborator Summit on how we talk about building long-term collaborators, because that's one of the things I think we need to think about. And that one working group, there's at least 3, 4, 5 people who've contributed over the long term, and so I think it's a nice, friendly model. Like if you're interested in add-ons and native code, it's a good group of people to come get to know. And it's I think you always get the question, how do I join the project, or how do I help? And it's such a big project with so much going on, it's hard to sort of make that connection. But if you come to the working groups and teams, you'll find a smaller group of people, usually very friendly, and the Node add-on API is a great one if you're interested in C code or add-on code. You can show up to the meetings, same with all the other teams, like the meetings are generally open, you can show up, and it's a great way to get engaged. So I think that's, I guess I'd say like that's a good place to meet mentors, or at least informal mentors, that kind of thing.
And most or all of them are recorded, right? So it's like you can always pop into YouTube and see if anybody's scary.
Yeah, we stream all those meetings, so you're right. You can watch them to get a feel, but I also encourage people to actually show up and just join the meeting, even if you just want to listen. The biggest thing I hear from people is like, well, I'm not the expert or whatever, but like nobody was, and everybody generally brings some other experience. Like the UVWASI one, like people are coming who are not necessarily Node experts, but they've got such a depth of knowledge in WASI that it's like, it's great because then everybody else learns. So just to say on that one, like, any team you come to, you probably have some knowledge which is other people don't have, and it's sort of getting everybody together, you all learn. And
there's obviously other ways of contributing other than just writing code for Node itself. The work that's been going on the website, right? Beth, I know you've been involved with with some of this. Can you update a little bit what's happening with the website and how folks can get involved?
Yeah, sure. So we've had a website redesign effort in progress for a while. Fortunately, in the past few months or so, maybe coming up to a year, we've had Claudio on board. He's really helped move that forwards, and we've actually migrated the main website over to Next.js from its previous framework. And I think this is great because it's one of the more common frameworks these days that I think it's a good potential to get new contributors into that working group. Picking up one of the frameworks that's quite popular might be more familiar code for people to step in. So that migration happened recently. We did have some teething issues that the build working group really did step up, and I'd just like to highlight that is definitely a working group where we're always looking for extra help, and they are completely behind the scenes, not ever really getting the recognition that people know is going on. And the kinds of things they help us with are looking after our CI machines, keeping the download server running, and you can imagine what happens when that doesn't go swimmingly. So they're always the first people to hear when something goes wrong, but when everything's going smoothly, they're not recognized at all. So yeah, build working group and website group been very busy recently.
And as I said, like 1 billion downloads last year. So I don't know how many that is per day, but you can imagine it's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, just last week, I think there was an issue with caching and some of these things, and just the amount of effort and the work that was put into just getting that going. And again, completely behind the scenes, completely invisible, right? So but it was a fantastic bit of work, and thank y'all for stepping in and getting that all done and keeping things running.
I think back to your question on the website, like Claudio really does deserve a lot of kudos for stepping up and driving all that. And that's a really good example of somebody who came to the project, and wasn't necessarily a node expert, but has found several different ways to get involved and really contribute to moving things forward. And so if you're, I guess it's like if you've got that energy and interest, it's certainly the project. I'm sure you can find some places to make a real impact like that.
Yeah. So let's a couple other areas. So there's other activities that have been happening, like loaders, the loader API that's been being worked on for a while. Has there been much progress there? There's other things like shadow roams, and what are some of these areas that are starting to emerge?
There is a massive PR open with hundreds of comments discussion about the new loader API change. Okay, it's I think half of the TSC at this point has committed code to it. Like, I don't know, a lot of people have been contributing. There is a massive amount of effort being done. And it's actually one of the most central pieces of Node.js, and I'm so happy that others are doing it. I'm not involved, but it's thanks to all the people that have been so great in doing that specific work. There are other things that are good to mention. So I think that is probably getting ready to land. I truly hope we ship it on the 20. For Node 20 or sooner after the Node, like before Node 20 gets to LTS. Okay,
now,
otherwise
loaders is the part that deals with loading other CommonJS or ESN.
Yeah.
The folks
Yes. So there is a new loader extension API that will enable you to do code transformation in a separate thread, ideally unifying the steps both for ESM and CJS. So it will be replaced for the -- require that a lot of people have been hacking or using to get things done in a lot of places, including test runners, for example. Like, this is one of the biggest things missing for having a good support for jest or other things. So it's kind of the missing step.
Or maybe sometime down the road, maybe possibly baking in some TypeScript support, maybe. But
so it will also be the starting point for anything that we will do for better support for TypeScript, which is one of the things that everybody asks us all the time. So once that lands, we will also have better. We will probably very shortly after have better support for TypeScript. So, which is a very good thing.
It's really one of the last pieces for the ES6, good ES6 support too, right?
Yeah. It's probably the last.
Yeah.
It's great. On these other stuff, I really want to mention all the great work that's been done for fetch. The fetch spec in Node, the fetch implementation in Node is right now more or less as compatible with the spec as the other runtimes, which seems it's a great result. The current implementation is not as fast as it should be, okay, but we are aiming for correctness first and then see where it can be optimized later, at least for these very important spec-driven work. So there are other alternatives for implementing really fast HTTP APIs. So if you want to break the speed limit, you can use Undici, which is also part of the Node.js project, and which also is used by the new fetch implementation. But it's the main bottleneck, and James knows a thing or two of that for fetch, is what2g streams now. So it's James know the problem. No, James is laughing.
Yeah, I wrote it. I wrote it and it was slow. So yeah. Again, focusing on correctness before performance, and then going back and figuring out how to make it better.
So anyway, that's kind of the gist for that specific work. I just wanted to really mention, because all the team that has been working hard and all the contributors that are stepping by and helping. Every single time I'm doing a release for Undici, there are tens of commits, and if I don't ship one every 2 weeks, people get mad at me. So it seems like a good status of everything. So like the last one we did had 6 new contributors showing up, send patches in, and this is kind of with, I don't know, 20 something commits. And before that, we had the previous release was more or less 1 month ago, and lots of people contributing, working. It's great.
That's awesome. Now, one thing, just on that same theme of something that was written to be correct but not fast. Back in, was it 2016? I wrote the original WWG URL parser. And at the time, people were like, "This is really slow." I'm like, "Yeah, someone will come along and make it fast soon." Well, finally, we 2023, a few years later, we do have a fast implementation now, thanks to Yagis and Daniel in the Ada implementation. Fantastic work there, and just I think it's one of the fastest, if not the fastest, implementation of the spec now.
That's one of the things we didn't mention. We talked about some working groups, but there's been a really big focus on performance lately, and a number of people ramping up there and starting a team that's looking at that, and so that's been a good area of activity and progress that's been nice to see.
Oh yeah, it's been fantastic. I mean, I really like the approach that we've taken with this stuff. Like what WG streams, where it's correct first, and then we go make it fast. I know it's painful that it's not always the fastest thing right out the gate, but focusing on that correctness and then going back. And I always make the joke of I write the bugs and then encourage other people to jump in and contribute to the project to fix them. So yeah,
that's totally.
Yeah. What other new features have we been seeing that you guys are excited about?
I think there's a couple that have landed as experimental recently, which are the single executable applications. That's an interesting one. We, from the Next 10 effort, we had a deep dive. I can't remember now. It might have been year and a half. There's been quite a lot of work going, but the initial version of that landed, and that's around being able to bundle code into the node binaries themselves without having to build it. So some interesting work there. And then the other one, process permissions. Those are two sort of like hot off the press type things. Still experimental, but it's good to see those kind of bigger features getting in, and people can experiment with them.
The permissions one, I'm so excited about this one. This originally, a couple years back when I was at Nearform doing research on this, and Anna Henningsen did a bunch of research on this kind of what would it take to actually make this happen. And I don't but give it up hope that because the amount of work that was involved, but this is fantastic to see this progress.
Yeah, I think one of the other very well received features that we shipped in recent times is the built-in test runner. It's been so greatly received. Kudos to Colin for proposing it, and we've got some fantastic new contributors now extending it, adding coverage, things like that. Personally, I really enjoyed the feature. Being able to throw some scripts together and get some simple tests without having to, deal with dependable warnings for a package, and just using it directly has been great for me. And I think, Mateo, you had some great experience with the test runner too.
Yeah, look, we ported quite a significant piece of code to the test runner, and things got, tests were running like twice as fast or something like that, like some incredibly high number. Not because the test runner is actually specifically fast or was written with speed in mind. It's because it's extremely bare-bone. It does not have a lot of bells and whistles, but the problem is most of the time I don't need the bells and whistles. I just need them in test runner and not have all the bells and whistles. I just really want Node to run a Node script to do my tests, and that's actually great. So I really like it, and it's I can't wait to just move everything on top of that. It's I've heard it gets stable soon, so I'm very interested in what will happen. So
there's a PR open right now, I think, just
yeah.
getting it stable, right? Yeah, tons of work on that. It's been fantastic to see. So what about some of the old stuff that's been there? There's been, I've seen a PR, just haven't popped into it too much, but on DNS resolution, I guess the happy eyeball work is finally.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's these. I can take the blame for some of this. Okay, so I'm taking the blame. So okay, let me go a little bit on the problem. So I don't know how many of the readers of the watchers of this stream use IPv6 every day. I was more looking at some latest stats, and it seems like 15% of the internet is running IPv6 versus IPv4. Okay, which is but enormous amount of growth in compared to just a few years back, but it's still super. A very very
1.5 or 5.0.
No, 1.5,
1.5. Got it.
15% of the traffic is IPv6, and we are officially out of IPv4, so there are no IPv4 address to give away. So I don't know. It's one of those things. Node.js though did in a very bad or a good thing. So if you're using a Mac or a Windows machine or even a Linux machine, some of them, if you ask, if you do HTTP localhost, you don't know who is localhost. Okay, you don't, because localhost can be both your IPv4 address or your IPv6 address. This is good. Okay, so you can open up when you're doing your development environment either IPv4 port, or IPv6 port. Okay, this has become incredibly complex in 0 seconds. Okay, now Node.js for a long time, to simplify the developer workflow, and because the IPv6 was it was so a minority use case, okay, basically reordered the results from the DNS server so that IPv4 always came first, completely hiding the fact that you could have a completely broken IPv6 setup on your machine. Even clouds have IPv6 stack deployed in the data center not working. I've discovered this, by the way, firsthand. So it's super fun. Like, this is bizarre, okay? And what happened is some proponent of IPv6 complained to us and said that we were doing this reordering and it was hurting the IPv6 initiative, which is valuable from my point of view. And basically, well, the authoritative answer for DNS resolution are DNS servers. And so in 19, I think, we switched the default, I think, or maybe so that IPv6 now comes first or something like that.
I think that might have been an 18 even.
Might have been 18. Yes, might have been 18. Yeah. In 18, we switched the default. Now, this has caused a hell of a problem for the community, because especially on localhost, when you're connecting to Docker on Mac or Windows, you only get an IPv4 address, not an IPv4 port, not an IPv4 and IPv6 port. So if you just use localhost and your localhost resolved to the IPv6 address first, you're screwed because you're not going to talk to your Docker container. And it's a hell of a problem for the community. So there is an RFC for this called API eyeballs that basically tells us, instruct the software to try both IPv4 and IPv6 when connecting to a host and selecting both the one that essentially arrives first. Which completely solves the problem in what browser users all the time. They try IPv6, try IPv4, and everything works correctly. So this is hopefully shipping in 20 as the default, very likely, which is great, and will solve a pain for a lot of people that have been hit by this problem, especially the ones in bad corporate networks and things where like they had a major hit on this topic. Sorry about the long DNS digression. I hope I didn't.
The only question I would have is, how confident are we that we got it right this time?
Dun, dun, dun.
That's
The
great.
saga continues.
But I will say that it's also worth mentioning on that one, there is a command line option that you can use to set it back to the previous behavior. So that's something to be aware of. If you're upgrading to 18 and you are running into IPv6 issues, mostly because your machine is not configured correctly, you can add this command line option and go back to the old behavior. I've had to do that a few times myself, so definitely worth mentioning.
Always good to have those options. Cool. So, let's talk about what WG streams. So that's been in there, I think, just about 2 years. It was, I think, 2 summers ago that I did the work to actually implement the first very buggy version of that. What's been happening since? Mateo, I think you probably have the most context on what's been happening with those.
Sorry, I kind of missed the question. Just notification
What
popped,
what WG streams? Kind of what's been happening with WG streams?
Nothing, and it should be. So this is where more collaborations is actually welcome. Okay, so it's not true that nothing has happened. We have completed all the interoperability between WhatWG streams and node streams. So there is a full set of utility that can be done with both. So you could essentially create a pipeline coming from a WhatWG stream into a node stream, or vice versa. It's great, okay? And there is all sorts of utility to, including a function called isDisturbed. And if your stream is disturbed, it's probably, if you're probably resorting to that, there is something we probably need to talk. But there is all these utilities has been done. It's so great because I basically did a few presentations telling the world we should do this, then did probably the first starting stone for the work, and then opened issues, and the things happened. It's a few years, and it's been amazing to see. Okay, but we got there. The problem on WhatWG streams is they're slow. Okay, right now the implementation in Node is slow. It's also made more complex because given how we implement fetch outside of Node, you cannot, like, this is a bug in the spec from my point of view. You cannot implement fetch on top of the public API of WhatWG stream. Like, the public API does not offer all the information that's needed for fetch to be implemented, which is, I don't know.
So this is an area that I think that, like, we really could, like, if folks really want to get involved with Node, I mean, this is a whole area that is ripe for new contributions, because the spec itself is one thing, and if you write this API specifically to that spec, there's all kinds of performance issues that are in there. There's one, for instance, if you tee a readable stream into 2 branches, there's no back pressure signaling across the branches, and you end up eating up a lot of memory. There's all kinds of issues that are just in the spec, but the spec itself does not necessarily require you to do the full implementation of the streams following the spec exactly. There's lots of room for performance optimization, but that just requires time and research and people going in and doing those things, right? So, I mean, it's an area that, if you're really looking to contribute to Node, it's something that I would strongly encourage folks to jump involved in.
It's kind of amazing because, y'all are like so deep, like just listening to y'all talk. I mean, the problems y'all are solving for the web, and like asking for contributions. Like a lot of, other projects out there, like, we don't need contributors because they need context. And I'm sitting here listening to you all like, wow, that's amazing. So again, proof to show that Node is a great project that you all are just willing to shepherd in people without context to help and actually be able to make significant impacts on the project.
Yeah, and I think there's enough of us around that are willing to just, if you need that context, reach out, ask.
That's amazing.
One thing I'd like to mention, the OpenJS Foundation arranged an event at the Grace Hopper Day. They had an open source day where they had a great workshop, some great volunteers from the Node project. So thank you for volunteering to be mentors.
Oh, amazing.
They got, a bunch of folks in a room, taught them how to build Node, how they might submit a PR. And we've always found, even back when we used to do code and learn sessions at conferences, we tend to come out with some long-term contributors from those sessions. So definitely great sessions we've been running, and I hope we do some more in the future to open the doors for some new contributors.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're overdue for a code and learn session again. I think we should do that. Do that again.
James, are we planning for a code and learn at NodeConf? So is it the deal?
Yeah, we should. We should. For those who don't know, NodeConf, we're doing it again.
Y'all are so nice.
November,
because I know how much the work is for you all to like get the PRs ready for everybody to contribute. So I know it's just like a lot of effort on your all side, and it's great that y'all are willing to do that. But are you tired thinking about it? Should it be before or after that week-long thing that Mateo has to do?
Or a lot of work. The one that we did in Austin, I can't even remember what year it was. It was like 2016, I think. That one was it was amazing, and it was brutal because I think in one day we had something like 1,500 pull requests open in one day, and they all had to be reviewed and gone through and stuff. We got them all landed, but it took us almost like 2 weeks to get them all done. So that was a fun day. Cool. So we got a bit of time left. We got coming up to the end of the questions that we have. So I just kind of want to, what's been on your mind? What are you each working on individually with Node these days? Let's start with Beth.
Yeah, sure. So previously I've been doing a lot of work around releases, but in the past few months I've kind of started looking at some supply chain security type topics, kind of spurred on by the OpenSSF and some of their initiatives, particularly their Salsa. There's a framework called Salsa where you can review your readiness for your artifacts, whether they're properly signed, whether they can be trusted. So I've been running through those and seeing whether we can declare a base level of this is the level we're at, and then figure out some next steps to maybe increase the trust in our artifacts. And in particular, also looking at Sigstore. Lots of folks talking about Sigstore. It's very big in OpenSSF and NPM. I know they're interested in it in terms of signing the packages. So we're looking at it from the Node side to see whether there's something for us to do there in terms of releases. So that's mostly my focus area at the moment, supply chain security and releases.
Michael.
I'm always involved in the Node API work, so that's kind of like a long-term ongoing thing. Very interesting on the add-ons if anybody's interested. I think the add-on we maintain now is downloaded around 12 million times a week, so quite a lot of usage there, which is great. Nan, the alternative, still downloaded 20 million. Takes a long time, but this has been a long effort, but we're getting there. The other thing I've been spending a bit more time on is looking at the WASI side of things. Started based on the fact that Node uses WASM itself, and because of that, we embed some WASM, and for open source distributions like we have it at Red Hat, that's often something we don't want. So I started by adding the ability to externalize the WASM blobs that we've added, just actually JavaScript in general. And also now looking a little bit more at the UV-WASI side, helping to start up that UV-WASI team, and few simple PRs to get like a stub that we were missing, involved. So starting to do a little bit more work on that side. And I'm trying to think, generally involved in lots of the different stuff that's going on, but those are two of the more technical ones where I'm spending a little bit of time. I guess not as directly related to Node Core itself, but a little bit of a funny story is I'm doing some work on build packs. Build packs came from, Heroku, Cloud Foundry, but they're now a standard in CNCF. So we're actually doing some work to support those on Red Hat stacks, which have some very interesting things. But the story was like, I was looking at an issue in the build pack repo. It's like, hey, here's something in Node Core. I can go fix that. I went over there, did some research. After a couple hours, I figured out I'd already fixed it, a couple months back. It's like, oh, okay, I already did that one, but didn't remember. I thought that was a bit funny.
Yeah, those are always very good. You find your own issues and like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah,
it's like, yeah, and I actually even fixed that one. Okay.
You're also involved with the Next 10 group, right?
Yep. That's one where we look at the sort of what are the important areas for work for the Node project, because planning is really kind of a challenge in an open source project. We don't have any one big company who's like funding most of the collaborators. So much of the work is really very much individual, goals and problems that each individual has, and that's where a lot of driven work and great work is driven. Like, for example, James, you mentioned, hey, we add an API, but it's not optimized. Somebody then is later trying to use that, so they get motivated. So we get a lot of work and a lot of sort of forward progress just by people scratching the itches they have or working on that. But we also think it is important to kind of have a view of what's important for our success going forward, and that's what the Next 10 was aimed at doing. It's, we've gone through the effort of sort of identifying, the top technical issues that we think we need to be working on. And actually, I think we've seen some good progress in terms of, the SCA, the single executable applications was one that was there. And I think just getting those highlighted help people feel like it's important to work on them, more comfortable to sort of open issues, asking for changes. And so we've seen a few things like that. Fetch was another one where we did a deep dive. We said we want to make some progress on HTTP, and that sort of helped to, it didn't do any of the work us getting together, but I think it helped to make people confident in moving forward with it, right?
Yeah.
So had a great so I think we're at the point where we've identified the major technical things, as well as like our stakeholders and what they need. And so that large piece of work is done. Now it's mostly a maintenance thing of saying, like, is that still accurate? Because it will change over time. At each of the collaborator summits, we usually do a session on making sure that's accurate. We did one back in September in Ireland. We're planning another one for the collaborator summit coming up in Vancouver. We also have a survey coming up, so hopefully we'll get that survey out in the next few months. And if people can answer that helps to make sure that like our view of what we think is important lines up with the larger ecosystem.
Nice.
What about you, James?
What am I working on these days? So I'm focusing on more kind of standard APIs. So getting more web platform APIs supported. We got the Winter CG Web Interoperable Community Group going last year, specifically to bring Node and Dino and Bun and workers, all these other non-browser runtimes together to kind of collectively bargain for on behalf of these non-browser runtimes, when it comes to these web platform specs. So I want to see more use of WebGL streams, right? Less use of like runtime specific APIs. More use of these common web APIs, so we can write one bit of code that has a reasonable chance of working consistently across platforms. So that's kind of the main part of my effort. But also, I'm still trying to get quick protocol implementation across the line. This PR started as like 80,000 plus lines changed, and it was just massive. So I've been slowly whittling it down, taking pieces out, and and landing them, and trying to get it down to a PR that's somebody could actually reasonably review. So I'm hoping to have a update to that PR within the next couple of weeks. I've been spending the past couple of weeks updating it, so hopefully it'll be. I'm hoping to get that landed this year. So that's me.
On the Winter CG side that you mentioned, the one I think is interesting is the serverless side of things, because like you're looking at the different serverless offerings, and they all do basically the exact same thing, but the APIs are all just slightly different. So you couldn't take your code and run in the different places. So I think that's an interesting one to look at for sure.
Yeah. It'd be interesting. I mean, if we could take a serverless function and run it on Lambda, run it on Workers, run it on, any of the platforms, and it just works, that's something I think would be compelling for everybody. So it's
I don't think there's really any technical problem that prevents that. There's certainly depends on what your function uses. If you're using certain APIs only available in certain places, sure. But if you're just using external or other microservices, it should be able to just run and be portable. So
if we're all using Fetch, if we're all using standard streams, if we're all using these common APIs that exist on all the platforms, why does the function signature have to be different? I'm definitely hoping that we can make progress and solve for that problem this year.
Yeah, me too.
So, Mateo, what are you working on these days? I know you've been busy getting Platformatic going, but what else have you been doing?
I've been very busy getting Platformatic going. We have a launch week next week, so I am currently monitoring 3 things at the same time. So I'm turning I'm monitoring everything as going as planned. It's a little bit nerve-wracking. Then on top of that, we have there is the usual Fastify maintenance work, which is going quite well. The Fastify community is growing quite strongly. We just onboarded another collaborator in last week, so getting more and more people involved in the project is great from my point of view. Okay, so it's super healthy. Community is growing. I think we just passed. Sorry, I need to update. I think we just passed the mark of 4 million downloads per month, which is quite impressive from my point of view. So I am very happy about that. Then node-wise, there is most of my time is reviewing and making sure Undici ships. It's another project that's been used kind of everywhere at this point. It clock at 14 million downloads per month, something like that at this point. It seems most people are starting to use it because it's clear advantages over the Node Core HTTP ones. So I'm very happy about it. I'm very happy about that too. Probably most of my time is spent on reviewing that stuff, as well as reviewing Node Core PRs on stream. Typically, I am the grumpy old person in that team. So basically, I'm reviewing them and saying yes or no, trying to steer the group and so on. There is the usual stream of things happening all the time there, and the old HTTP stuff. There were every single time we try to fix one of those bugs in streams or old HTTP, 2 more pops up. So one of the options is we might as well revert the original one. Okay, this is instead of having the other 2. Okay, so there is always that question. So yeah, that's me. I am very intrigued by the new by the work that is being done by Zhouyi and Shenzong on the Shadow Realm work, on the Shadow Realms work. It's once that ships, this is going to be massive. So I only look forward to that. So yeah, that's more or less me. I cover it all.
Cool. So we are coming up to the end. I just want to make sure folks that are watching the stream, if you have any questions, drop them into the chat. There, we've got just a few minutes to answer a few of those. Tracy, I don't know if any have come in.
Yeah. No questions yet. Just comments on, oh my gosh, 1,500 PRs. That's crazy. When we're talking about the code and learn stuff. Here we go. Here's a comment. Well, Mr. Hypermagnetic said, I don't know if you all have any comments on that.
This goes back to the loaders conversation.
Yeah. He also said, yay, web APIs.
Yeah, I think one of the emphasis on the loaders API work has been like everyone feels the pain of ESM and CommonJS and the inconsistencies and incompatibilities there, and the fact that the ecosystem jumped ahead with kind of partial ESM support and where that is. The loaders work has always been viewed as critical to addressing those problems, but really struggled to move forward there for a couple of years. So I think hopefully now that we are seeing renewed effort in loaders, that we will start to see these issues addressed. Does anyone have any specific context on this question with the default exports? I don't think we have the right people here to really talk through that, but yeah, I mean, I know I'm optimistic that we will get to see this stuff moving forward.
Yeah, that just highlights that like the project has so much going on. Just keeping it. Nobody has all of it in its head, and that's the question, the comment earlier that was being made about like, hey, collaborators need to have context. Like if we actually needed people to have the full context, like we would have nobody, because that's impossible. It's really a matter of coming in and understanding, one or more areas, or being willing to trust, like we trust our collaborators to sort of focus in on the areas that they know work about, and then the rest of us, even the people on the TSC will understand some areas well, and other areas, just enough to say, hey, that makes sense, and I trust the person who's telling us, what should happen.
Yeah, I don't think we can emphasize that trust enough with this project. I mean, other major open source projects, you see it, it's like, no, I got to review everything. And here, oh, you know what? I just recognize there's stuff that I don't have to review. I'm not going to review. I can step away. Like last year, I kind of stepped away from the project for about 6 months. Where I really wasn't even looking at stuff, and I just trusted. Yeah, they all got this, right? And I do that, and you don't see that level of trust in other projects. So it's something I really enjoy.
But what's amazing about it is it's kind of like, until you step away, you don't realize that it'll actually be functional without you.
Well, that's always, you always got to take that viewpoint. But as an individual, we're always so in, like, exactly what's going on in your bubble, but so it's hard to get beyond that sometimes, for sure.
Yeah.
In the couple minutes we have left, I do want to talk about events that are coming up. Like we've mentioned, NodeConf EU, which Matteo and I are involved in selecting talks and so forth. The call for proposals is going to be opening up here soon. I think like in about a week. And that's going to be happening in November, early November in Ireland. Mike Rogers is just talking about doing a NodeConf US again.
Yay!
24. So that's Matteo, I don't know if you have any more context on that, but that's exciting to be happening.
So sponsors reach out.
Absolutely no context whatsoever on the topic. But I'm just excited about Michael saying that's going to throw NodeConf in the US. So I'm just, I will be very supportive if it does. So.
I'm wearing my Node Summit advisor shirt. Back when Node Summit was a thing, and I dropped a comment to Charles Beeler, who ran those before, that really want to try to get Node Summit kicked off again. So we'll have to see if we can do.
Yeah,
something.
that would be great. I quite missed that one.
Yeah. So we got a question here. What about the permissions API? So yeah, we did.
Specifically, will we see them in Node 20?
Yeah. We should. Permissions API is they're landed experimental. I believe that's actually in 19 currently, isn't it? Already out.
I think the answer is they'll all be there. The question might be whether they're experimental or not. That's one thing about our release approach. We don't hold things back for majors. They flow in, and then our major is kind of boring because it's like, well, here's all these things that you already had. But I think that's better. Like as an open source project, that's much better. We don't need to hold things back to market and force people to pay for a new release or anything.
I think the more important question is, are these things going to be experimental by the time 20 reaches LTS?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And I'd say like Watcher and Test Runner have a really good chance, I think, of coming out of experimental by then. Permissions API, I would imagine, is going to take quite a while longer, since it is such a important piece to get correct.
Yeah, and does just being security related has lots of potential gotchas. And I think the other one, UV-WASI, is one we're talking about possibly making stable for 20 as well. So.
Yeah, and I don't know if I just haven't been paying attention or whatever, but the Node.js Twitter handle has been so great at posting like, I don't know. Do you guys feel like they've been posting more? I feel like, is it just me?
I would like to do a shout out to
Mhm.
Kylie. I can't pronounce her surname. I'm so sorry. From the OpenJS Foundation, that she has been driving. This is the person behind the OpenJS, the Node.js account. I don't know if somebody can get their surname, please. Somebody help me out on the topic. But she's amazing, and she's been the person driving the
Yeah,
whole
like
account.
all the security updates, all the releases.
Yeah.
It was great to see like kind of like that real time stuff happening, on March 17th that was
I
happening.
think
That
she's
was really
Kylie Wager-Dirks.
Dirks, yeah.
Wager-Dirks, yeah, okay, perfect.
good.
It's yeah, so yeah, she's
Yeah.
amazing, and she has been doing a lot of the work.
Yeah.
Again, it
And,
just goes back to all the different ways people can contribute to the project. Yeah, there's the deep bits of code and making whatever piece thing go faster and all that kind of stuff. But the social media reaching out, the website work, release, build. I mean, all of these different things that if we didn't have the contributors to that space, no one would be using the code that we wrote. So it's all of those things are critically important, and we would absolutely love more contributors to come into the project.
Yeah.
And help.
And I've been seeing a lot of posts on like the certifications as well. I know that's been like years in the works to kind of make that a reality and get it smooth. But it seems like things are going smooth with that.
Yeah.
It's great. So yeah, but yeah, check out the Node.js Twitter, y'all, if you want to see that. I mean, again, there's like a lot of information there about like OpenJS World and the OSS Summit and call for speakers and different things like that. So.
And if Twitter's not your thing now, I think they're
oh yes.
over to
in the metaverse.
Yeah.
The Fediverse, not the metaverse. My mistake. But yeah, and that's also posted on the Node.js Twitter as well if you need that information. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. These people here on this panel are all really friendly, nice, and amazing, as you've seen. So if you ever want to slide into their DMs or hang out or join, one of these working groups, they're always willing to help. So thank you. Thank you so much for all y'all's hard work. Your second job and third job. Okay, y'all. I'll see you next time. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Yep. Bye.
bye-bye.